Hello and welcome back to another very exciting example of compound interest. I am very excited for today's video because what we're going to do something a little bit different before. We're not just going to see how just a number can grow over time, but a number plus your own investments, how you can push compound interest along even faster. As I said before in previous videos, oh, first of all, for those of you who have no idea what compound interest is, to put it very simply, it's how a number can grow exponentially over time with a small percentage growth per period. You frequently see compound interest talked about in finance, in like investment terms, how your investments can grow exponentially over time. And that's really kind of the example we're going to be honing in on today. If you remember from last video, or if you saw last video, we calculated how much $1,000 can grow if it was invested in the S&P 500, like in an index fund that mirrors the S&P 500, because we found out in last video that the average return in the last 25 years for the S&P 500 was 7.33% year over year, and we found that after 25 years, your $1,000 would grow almost six times itself to $5,861.76, which is very, very fascinating and just shows how powerful compound interest could be because you literally just put $1,000 in. 25 years later, you woke up and it was almost $6,000. But what we're looking at today, what if you took a little bit more active role in your investing, and what if you maxed out your Roth IRA? And now, if you don't know what a Roth IRA is, it is an investment retirement account. And the great thing about a Roth IRA is that, unlike a regular investment account where any profits you make that you realize you do have to pay taxes on, with a Roth IRA, you do not have to pay taxes on your profits. So if you put $1,000 in and you ran it up to $1 million, that $1 million would be tax free. Now, there are a lot of stipulations. You do have to be of retirement age to cash that out without any kind of penalties, but it is a very powerful retirement tool. So powerful, in fact, that the government actually puts restrictions on it. You can only put $7,000 per year into your Roth IRA. So they do restrict how much you could put into it because of how powerful it could be. So in this example, we're going to start with $7,000. We're going to say you maxed out your Roth IRA for this year. It's going to grow at the average S&P annual return, and you're going to continue to max it out every single year after that. Now, granted, they do frequently update the Roth IRA contribution limit. I wouldn't be surprised if in 25 years it wouldn't be 7,000. But for this example, we're going to say they're going to keep the level at $7,000 per year, and we're going to put in $7,000 every year. So this will be an interesting example because we've seen kind of the power of compounding interest at 5%. We've seen it at 7.33%, and more of a real world example there. But now we're going to see 7.33% plus our own dedication and willpower to continue contributing money after the fact. And we're not only going to see how big this number grows, because compound interest will take a hold of this number, do not get it twisted, but we're also going to compare that to how much money we put in 25 years. $7,000 for 25 years. You could probably do that math pretty quickly on your own, but comparing that to the number it will be, I think you'll be surprised because $7,000 per year is a lot of money, and you will see that the number invested, $7,000 times 25, is a big number as well, but the number that will be total because of compound interest will be extraordinarily motivating, and very, very interesting to delve into. So without further ado, without any more preamble, let's get straight into the numbers here, and let's hope I don't butcher these equations as I put them in. So, like I said, we're starting with year zero, which is right now, and we're putting $7,000 in a Roth IRA invested in the S&P 500 there. So first things first, just to keep it simple, what does that number look like in terms of how much it grew in the year? So how much did our $7,000 grow by itself? So what we're going to do, we're going to multiply that by 7.33% and then add it to itself, basically showing that after 1 year, after a 7.33% return, $7,000 turns into $7,513.10. And if you can't make out exactly what that is, that's $513.10 for the year. So obviously, the difference between 1,000 and 7,000 is already tremendous. It just shows like obviously for compound interest and with anything, the math stays the same no matter what number you put in there, but the bigger the number you start with, the bigger the results you're going to see instantly, which is very exciting. But also the math is the same, like I said. So it's the same math behind these numbers. It's just bigger number equal bigger number. It's pretty simple there. But that's not what we're calculating today. It's not the only thing we're calculating today. First of all, interest on interest, just to quickly explain that again, that is the compoundingness of these numbers. So your money will earn 7.33%. The interest on interest will be the money that your interest is earning. And you'll quickly see, as in our examples of the past, that number quickly matches the total interest numbers. It gets very close to just to show how powerful the money you didn't even earn. It's the money that you earned. What that earned is the compoundingness, and that's how the number starts to take off. We'll also be calculating that as well. But for year one, it's still zero because at the start of that year, the previous year, we didn't have any interest for it to compound itself. So this is just straight up after 1 year, 7,000 turns into $7,513.10. That's not the only thing we're calculating because we are also maxing out our Roth every year. So at the end of 1 year, we are eligible to put in 7,000 more dollars. So it's $14,513.10, which means for the interest number to be accurate, we do have to subtract 7,000 from that as well. So it keeps our interest. It still was 513.10, but our total amount is actually 14,513 and 10 cents. And I think over here, we're going to keep actually a running total of amount invested, just so we can kind of get a perspective here. So this would be 7,000 times 1, I guess, to keep it simple. What? I can't do that? Oh, I put a comma where I wasn't supposed to. And that is dollars. And this would be, I'm sure there's an easier way for me to do this. 7,000 times, I don't need a dollar sign in an equation, times 2. And this will all be dollars here. And then, so just to show you percentage-wise as we're running as well, because I think this will be very important, because you'll be thinking like, I have to put so much money in to see such minimal results. I intend to show you that that is not the case. So starting off at year one, though, it is the case you're doing a lot of the heavy lifting because only 3% of your total money is interest. You put in the remaining 96.33% essentially. So you're doing a lot of heavy lifting at year one here. But let's start moving on. Let's do this one more time to year two. So that grows after another year to $22,576.91. And to maybe your surprise, maybe not to your surprise, that interest amount has doubled to $1,063.81. That's not cumulative. That's just for year two. It helps that we put in another $7,000, so that's why it over doubled there. But we are starting to see a little bit of difference between, it's not just doubling, it's not linear. It will be exponential. That's the power of compound interest. And to demonstrate that, we're going to show the compounding nature here in this column because that number will start to appear. And to do that, I'm going to type in a fun little equation with the sum. And it'll look weird for the first time just because it's the only cell we're working with. But essentially what we're doing is adding um, the total amount of interest earned and multiplying that by our investment rate just to show how much of the pile is interest and how much interest is growing off of that pile, essentially. It'll make more sense as we get deeper into it, but for now, just know that the difference between these two, other than that double because we added another 7,000, is $37.61. That's how much our $513.10 grew in that year, to put it simply. In total amount invested, 21,000, and we're going to copy this equation over here. Let's see if it copies correctly. Yes. So of our 22,000, 21,000 of it was what we invested ourselves, but the number has changed because the amount of growth, the amount of percentage of our portfolio that is growth is 7.51. which basically means we did 92.5% of the work. Interest did 7.5. Still not really pulling its weight considering we put $21,000 in this account. But let's skip ahead a little bit. Let's skip ahead to year five and see how things have changed. I think these ones I'll be able to copy just fine. This is also a great experiment of watching a man struggle for his life with Excel equations. This is Google Sheets. I don't want to hear your semantics. They operate almost identically, but I still struggle with either. But jumping here, I will have to adjust this a little bit because we want to copy it so it's always starting at G4, and then it also pulls from G5 as well. Oh, and then I also need my fancy dollar signs there to lock in this. So it always pulls from that number. And that's an Excel fun fact for you. The funky little dollar signs lock in your cell. So the equation it doesn't think it's smarter than me and pulls from the wrong things there. And now we can copy it without struggling through that. Thanks for your patience on that one. But we can see here the numbers are starting to shift. After 5 years, we've invested $42,000 because it's year five, but it is our sixth time putting $7,000 in. That's why it's not just 7 times 5. And 42,000, but our growth is $50,491.28. The interest in that period alone was almost $3,000, $2,970.20. And our interest on our interest was $400.70. Now, the important number to look at will be this percentage one again. Looking down here, almost 20% of our portfolio now is pure growth alone. So far, so good. I think things are starting to look up here. You might be looking at this saying, $8,000, is the juice worth the squeeze? Maybe not at first. Maybe it's not worth socking away 42,000 of your hard-earned cash for only $8,000 in return. But what this is an example of patience and discipline, because the 5 year mark is only the beginning of this growth, and that is incredibly exciting. Now, we're going to do another jump here, 5 more years into the future to see what we're looking at after year 10. Our numbers have almost or have over doubled rather. Our total growth is 112,436 and 52 cents. Our interest for that year, a very, very important milestone here, $7,200.69, which means that our 7.33% return of our portfolio plus our $7,000 that we're adding, created an interest this year that is higher than the amount that we're contributing. So even though if you look back at our equation, we're subtracting 7,000, we're still gaining over 7,000 in interest. So at this point, it's a crossover point where the interest per year is more powerful than you are because you are capped by the government at $7,000 per year, whereas interest is not capped. It will continue growing exponentially and is now contributing more per year to your Roth IRA than you are even capable of doing, which is extraordinarily exciting. And again, this is a reminder. This is the S&P 500 annual return. This is something that you can find this index fund in every reputable investment site. It's a fairly basic thing to invest in. You literally just put the money in. It's fairly low risk. I mean, it is an equity, so it has an inherent amount of risk involved, but it's very diversified in equities in the stock market. It's all of the United States companies, the biggest companies in the world. So it's not speculative. It's not the putting the horse on a single company. It is a fairly basic and recommended investment advice. And in 10 years, after 11 times maxing out your Roth IRA, it is doing harder work than you can, and we're less than halfway through this example here, which will just give you a sniff of the power that we're about to unfold here, the power of compound interest. Did I say I love compound interest? because I do. And we're almost getting to a very important milestone here as well, where the growth of our portfolio is 46%. So it's almost getting to the point where the growth overall is surpassing what we did. And we put in a not insignificant amount of money here at $77,000 of our own hard-earned cash. So it's not like we're not putting in the hard work on our own. It's this continued dedication to $7,000 per year, which has grown our investment so far to 112,436 and 52 cents. But like I said, we're not even halfway done with this example, which is incredibly exciting. Let's do one more 5-year jump. You know what? Let's do a 10-year jump here. We're going to go to year 20, so the 21st year of us maxing out our Roth IRA, and watch these numbers explode. So from 5 to 10, we went to 50 to 112. Where are we going to go after 10 years? I think you may be surprised. $326,332.36. Excuse me while I adjust these columns here. And look at this number here. This is a number you want to be focusing on. The interest amount for year 20 is $21,808.50. Over triple what we are capable investing in a Roth IRA is our interest, is that 7.33% on our portfolio. We're almost $1/3 of $1 million, starting from our $7,000 in year zero and continuing that $7,000 every year. Our total amount invested is $147,000, which, if you do that math quickly, this number, 121.99%. Now, I know what you may be thinking. Why didn't it stop at 100? Well, what this means is, at this point in time, if you look at these two numbers, our investments, our total investment growth has surpassed the amount invested by 21.99%, which means our investments have grown 147,000 on their own, plus an additional 21.99%. So not only is it doing more work than the money we put in, it is doing more than double the amount of work that it put in there. And that is truly outstanding. Just 10 years ago, we were under the 50% mark, meaning that our investment growth was half of the amount that we put in. It was doing half the work, so to say. But now it is doing more than all of the work of the money combined. Not to say that your $7,000 aren't still important at this point, but they are drastically less important because our interest is growing $21,000 every single year. And looking at the interest on the compounding nature of it, just to check back in on that number, it is 11,546.50. Now, you might be confused if you watched the last video where the interest on interest number by the end of it was the vast lion's share of the growth, where just the difference between the first interest amount, 7330, minus the 400 was the amount of compounding, right? And it's a little bit different here. You'll notice that 21,000 is still far outpacing 11,000, and we didn't get $10,000 in interest in the first period here. That is because of our continued investments, that $7,000 that we are putting in every year. But just to show that number here, just on the interest our money is gaining, the compounding nature is over our $7,000 amount. And just to emphasize the importance of this interest on interest number, I think of it this way. If the interest is the money that your hard-earned money earned, right? I still think you could take some like moral credit for that because you put the money in there. But interest on interest is 2 degrees removed from anything you even put in there. So it's not the money earned on your 7,000. It's not the money that you earned on the 7,000 you put in the next year. It is the money that your 7,000 earned, that money that money earned. It's so far removed from you, or at least the way that I think of it is, it's free money. And it's the power of compound interest, and it's doing 11,546. It's doing a lot of this exponential growth power. It is what is compounding in compound interest there. But what's going to be really fun is the final 5-year jump. So in 10 years, we about tripled everything here, 112 to 326, and we're going to see the final jump here, just how powerful this thing could be. So let's skip forward here 5 years for the final showing of boom, $500,000 $505,320.73. There's a lot of great stuff going on here. A lot of great stuff. What is super fascinating is, and this got a little busted here just because I ran out of numbers that it was pulling from. So let me just fix that. Or sorry, I fixed the wrong one. Let me fix this. Um, what we're looking at here, obviously our total growth, $500,000. What we contributed total over the 25 years is $182,000. So not an insignificant amount. It meant that the difference between these two numbers is 177% of 182. So our percentage, our interest, our growth was 182,000 on top of 182 that we put in, plus an additional 77%. Our interest that period was almost $35,000. So if you stopped at this point, it would grow $34,000, and then that $34,000 would continue to compound. And maybe we'll do an example in the future where maybe you only maxed it out for these 25 years and you just let it sit for another 20 years. You said, I'm done contributing 7,000. And that would still continue to snowball because that 35,000 compared to your 7,000, it's 5 times more powerful than you. Not that your 7,000 not very important. It is important. You're very important. But interest is really the star of the show now. And the compounding interest here, the interest on the interest is 21,000, 3 times the amount that you can put in there, just to show how big this snowball is truly growing here. And just for prosperity's sake, we're also going to calculate our total amount of growth from beginning to end, including our own investment amount, including our own efforts. And to calculate that, you're going to take that 500,000, subtract from our original 7,000, and divide by that 7,000 as well. And you might be amazed. You might be amazed to see that our total growth was 7,000%. 7,118.887%. Is that just wild or what? Does that seem like a fake number to you? Let's look back at just our letting the number sit. We ended at almost 500%. With our own growths of 7,000, now granted, by adding 7,000, you're adding 100% every single year just by your own willpower. But compounding interest took it to 7,000% growth. I could hardly believe it. I could hardly believe the power of compound interest. $500,000 in your retirement account. And let's say you retired at 65 when you could start pulling that money out. That means you started this little experiment at age 40 years old. Not that some people haven't started later, but not to say that's super early either. There is work to be done, ladies and gentlemen, and the majority of it will be done by compound interest if you only let it. 505,000 from 7,000 every year. 182 total turns into 505. Like magic. Oh, that's good stuff. Thanks for watching.